Good morning, everyone. Here is your fun fact of the day. They are called grubs. And yes, I know the weather may or may not reflect it outside, but the growing season is at the very least nearly in view. Soon daytime temperatures will start climbing, along with nighttime temperatures not being so low. Grass will start coming out of winter dormancy, and along with the grass coming out of winter dormancy, so will many of the insects that come with it. A grub is a larvae. That's the second stage of life for insects who have a complete metamorphosis. Instead of just we as humans who are born as a baby, we still look exactly like we will, physically speaking, as adults. 2 arms, 2 legs, a head, a torso, average speaking. We have just gradual growth. Insects, many of them, have complete metamorphosis, where they start as an egg, they hatch into a grub, a teeny little worm, almost like a thing that lives in the soil, at which point, sometime later, the grub will pupate, which is just simply a transformation process where then it becomes an adult. Grubs belong to a couple specific insects, things like the European chafer bug or the Japanese beetle. Now, as adults, these insects are not nearly so problematic to the turf itself. They're usually just a nuisance and an eyesore. But as grubs, they can be devastating at times. Now, here's what they do. The eggs are laid in the ground and then they hatch, and their sustenance when they're living in the ground as grubs is roots of grasses. Now, roots are vital for many reasons, not the least of which is water uptake, so the grass can continue, living and being hydrated, but also nutrient uptake, because many nutrients are taken up with the water. So if a grub eats off all of the roots to a grass plant, the grass plant will literally starve and dehydrate to death in days, assuming it hasn't been dug up first. Now, these grubs do not multiply like bacteria. They don't just continue spawning more and more. There's a set amount of eggs that are laid, and therefore a maximum amount of grubs that can occur. Now, these grubs have some natural predators, things that we might not enjoy so much, like moles, who simply make tunnels everywhere, or things we might enjoy not at all, things we might actually hate, like skunks, who will literally rip apart an entire lawn overnight searching for grubs that they know are there because they can smell it. Grubs can be treated. There are insecticides for them. Search for those on your own, but also just some watering can help alleviate some of their damage. I did mention this last week, because here's the funny thing. Grubs are a part of life. Grubs are part of nature. It's a circle of life. They feed on grass. Many other things feed on the grass. And things feed on them, and the circle of life continues. So you might hate grubs. You might despise them for all the things they're going to affect your lawn with. I understand that. They're an adversary to what you are trying to do, your goal you're trying to accomplish, which is keep your lawn healthy and growing well and just a wonderful sight. But grubs do not need to be the end of the world. If you spot one, you might want to start looking for more. If you only spot the one, I wouldn't be terribly concerned about it. Here's how you can figure out how much grubs are affecting your lawn. Go out and look for what seems to be an affected area, or just pick a random spot, and grab a hold of the turf and start pulling on it. Don't try to yank it out of the ground, just give it a solid tug. If it lifts right out of the ground, like it's just sitting on top, that's because there's no more roots. It's because the roots are what hold it in the ground. So if the grass just pulls off the top of the ground, it has no roots, there's a strong chance that something ate those roots. Probably a grub. If you tug on the grass and the grass does not move, or if it only moves a little, you hear some tearing, some popping, those are roots breaking off. The roots are present, therefore at the very least, grubs have not completely ruined that plant. This doesn't mean they're not present. This is describing what's called as an action threshold, or a damage threshold, is when the grubs will continue to eat the roots, but they may not get very big. There may not be very many grubs, so the eating may be a little dispersed, and the grass will be completely fine and will be able to survive all the damage that any of the present grubs will make. That's if they don't cross that action or damage threshold. When you start observing the damage, when the grass starts getting mottled and torn up and you can obviously see something is affecting it, now you've crossed that threshold and action needs to be taken. So don't panic if you find a single little white grub. Pictures in the description below as far as what they look like. They look nasty. I will completely grant that. I agree. Ugly little buggers. But they do not need to be the end of the world if you simply spot a single one, or even if you spot a few. There are ways around them. There are ways to treat them. And if you do happen to dig one up, just squish it. Be done with it. It's not the end of the world. Much more reading about grubs in the description below, and feel free to do a lot more of your own research so you are more acquainted with this potential problem, therefore will be able to more readily and confidently handle it should it ever arise in your area. Thank you for joining me for this fun fact of the day. See you again soon.